appreciate you. And I think as part of the questions, one of the things that you should start thinking about is, what is this anti-nuptial contract? What could be inside there and what could not be inside there? And I think, guys, if you've got questions, start organizing questions, especially for Mulalo. I want a lot of difficult questions towards her. She's a smarter one. So let's get the easy ones. So I'll appreciate that. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to build up on what Mulalo and because if you think about it, even before you get married, you will have to probably speak to a team of wealth planners, because that will include the likes of Mulalo, that will include the likes of Bruce. And if you remember, as part of the component of financial planning that Mulalo was actually talking about, one of the things there will be tax planning. So when you're speaking to Bruce, say, Bruce, I want to get married in out of communal property with accrual, then I'll say these are the tax implications. This is how it's going to have an impact on your wealth preservation rather. And then Mulalo will come in and say, this is what I think you should be looking into from retirement planning point of view. What are the consequences should either of you guys pass on? She will be able also to guide you through. Can you see how this whole thing holistically come together? And that's why traditional, they always say estate planning is not a one-man show. It's a various team. You need to start building this power team around. So Bruce, thank you so much. I will also, you'll be joining us later on the Q&A. Yeah, so let me actually, guys, in closing for myself, I'm actually going to go through this small presentation. Just bear with me. So like I said, the concept of this session is about assisting you, arming you guys rather, with wealth preservation literacy. And I think that's why the purpose of these webinars, like I mentioned, they'll be coming every 2 months, where we bring various experts within the wealth preservation space. But our residents, guys, will always be Mulalo and Bruce. Now and then we'll be joined by other distinguished leaders. So now let's go on a journey and build up on what Bruce actually said earlier on. So you guys, in your respective field, you are creating wealth, right? You'll agree with me. Some of you guys might be in property sector. Actually, most of you guys are in property sector. You might be also involved in other professions, right? And which is fine. And then you might also be involved in other profession, and whether you're in farming, and I know Mulalo, she's in farming, which is brilliant. So most of people always think about wealth creation, which is nothing wrong. But I always say it's equally crucial, it's equally important to actually start thinking about, how do I preserve this wealth? You'll agree with me, Mulalo, that if I'm in farming, I need to think about insurance, that should my crops not give me what I wanted, then the insurance should pay out. Should I not get the rain, then the insurance. For those who are in the property space will agree with me that should my tenants not actually pay, then I need certain insurance product that will actually substitute that vacancy, right? You'll agree with me, things like that. So that's during the wealth creation that you worry about. If you think about it, it's actually preservation, because you're blocking the leakages of potential things. So that's the concept. That's a sort of a financial education literacy that you need to be mindful of, to say, over and above all this journey of creation, preservation, utilization, and transfer, what are the risk factors? What are the indicators that I just need to be aware of and safeguard, so that I can safeguard my wealth? Hence, I would say most of us, we think a lot on creation. Every day we wake up, we want to create wealth. But very few of us, we think of preservation. Very few of us think about how efficiently would I transfer this wealth from one generation to the next generation. One of the best things that we do for soft life, we actually think about utilization. We know how to use money, right? We know how to spoil ourselves. But the unfortunate part is that during that spending of money, we don't even think about how efficient can I actually use this particular money. And I think that's actually where I'm saying this platform is about that. This platform going forward is all about, how do I preserve this wealth going forward. Now, this is typically what you'll find with you guys. You will typically find that you are actually investing in an individual capacity. We'll discuss that in other platforms, the disadvantage and advantages of that. Some of you guys might already have been having family trust, and we'll touch on those court cases going forward in other platforms in the next webinars to say what you need to be doing to administer and have an efficient administration of your trust. Some of you guys might already have operating trust. It might be property trust to ensure that you've got what? Wealth protection. For those who are familiar with asset protection within the structuring environment. Some of you guys already are investing using companies. That's okay. And I was telling Malalo earlier on to say, what happens if I'm got a company and I own shares directly into this? What happens when I pass on? Of course, the shares is going to be what? It's going to be an asset within your deceased estate. Then they'll be subjected to an estate duty. This is where Malalo was saying, no, it's okay. You can be subject to an estate duty because I'll give you this financial product that can pay over those kind of expenses. Can you see how tax planning and financial planning can end up coming together? And that's why we've got this platform. But we can always show you that product later on as we go along. So now what do? We're going to be applying as we go along. Malalo will come with her legal side of things from certified financial planners, legalities. And then Bruce will be looking into the legal side of how you already saw how the type of legal frameworks that you need to be aware of. And then, of course, I'll also be looking into the aspects of tax planning. So if I may ask the person who's not muted, please can you mute yourself? Thank you. And then now let's look at these indicators. These are some of the indicators that you sitting here, you're potentially falling on that. But the topic tonight that I'm building on, those the type of matrimonial properties. Sorry, guys, I'm just going to try to... can you please mute yourself? My apologies, guys. It's always distracting when someone is talking. So as I'm going to build up on the type of matrimonial property regime that Bruce was actually indicating and saying earlier on. Where I'm going with this thing is, I'm going to show you how, by virtue of you being married in community of property, has an impact in using in raising capital. And I think that's where I want to spend the next 2-3 minutes focusing on, right? These are some of the risks, of course, like I said, indicators and a couple of risks, but I want to give you this scenario, right? This is a typical scenario. Most of people get married in community of property. We saw topical stories of some of the famous people. Now they're fighting over the assets, and Bruce, you'll be there to answer some of the legal questions. Now, what happens if you're married in community of property? How are the banks going to see you? That's structuring, by the way. Before fundamentally you're even gonna come and say you wanna be a property investor, before even you're gonna come and say you wanna be a farmer, you wanna create wealth, how you are married matters. Married in community of property is the other type, like Bruce said, is another type of being married, of matrimonial property regime in the country, right? So when you're married like this, the scenario is this way. Let me give you a case study on this. These two couples, let's give them Maria and Sipo. They are married in community of property. Sipo is an entrepreneur, works hard, hustles. He makes money now and then, right? He makes money now and then, and he invests some of that. So they bought a land. Having bought a land, they built from the scratch and build a beautiful house, their dream home, which is brilliant. Now, the unfortunate part, you can understand entrepreneurs sometimes, the credit profile, it's not that good. And you know, the risk profile, it's also high, because the reality is that when you're going to raise bond or finance with the banks, your requirements as an entrepreneur, self-employed, it's actually more onerous compared to someone who's more full-time working. You'll agree with me on that. So it happens that SIPO, the credit profile is actually lower. On top of that is an entrepreneur. And this couple wanted now to invest in properties. They wanted to create wealth within the property sector. And they were sitting on equity in a sense that the market value of that home, their family home, their primary residence, was actually higher compared to the remaining bond that was sitting there. So which means that they could refinance and release some of the money and go and invest in additional investment properties. You'll agree with me. That's one of the brilliant strategies. That's why we always say a bond is actually the cheapest money you can ever get if you're an average Joe, right? So they couldn't do that because these people were married in committed property, because the banks couldn't see Maria, right, outside of SIPO. They jointly have to be assessed together because the banks see them as a joint estate. And this is where, so what happens is that then what will be the solution is, you can actually do a change of matrimonial property regime. And I think Bruce, from legal point of view, can actually assist you with what will be the application to the High Court and things like that to change that. Because the solution will be, let's move this particular structure. But now, as much as we did that, the problem now was that this property now was in their personal names, right? The property was there, so we couldn't just refinance it. So what we needed to do was that the lady needed to, after the change of the matrimonial property regime, then we create investment structure. If you saw earlier on the slides, I showed you the type of investments, right? Because the gentleman will not agree that now they are no longer married in community of property, they are married out of community of property, whether with accrual or without accrual. But the reality is, with, let's say, without accrual in this context, so he might feel like, how am I going to benefit now on this wealth that Maria is going to create? So this is where him as a beneficiary within the trust matters, but it doesn't have to reflect within the investment structure, especially where it has to stand as surety. And that's exactly what we did here, and where we separated them. So now they can be at with our accrual, but as long as they're still living, they're separately. So Maria can be free to create wealth on her own. Why I'm saying this is, be mindful of how the banks will see, because that will have a potential impact on how you're going to actually create wealth. Over and above that, has a potential of how you're going to preserve wealth. Because I'll give you an example. Say SIPO is a high risk individual. As an entrepreneur, you're very high risk. Anything could go wrong. As an entrepreneur, you might get into a deal, you sign sureties, and then things go west or south, and then they come after Maria. Maria, who's just a hardworking woman, career woman with a lot of share options, they will come after that because you are married in community of property. So be mindful to say, what are my risk profile? As a family, what is our risk profile? And then after assessing that, and this is where the likes of also Molalo can come in and say, this is your risk profile. You are exposed here, you're exposed here. And then you can also involve some of us to say, this is how we're going to change this risk profile and then move you guys in a more efficient structure that you can be allowed, like Maria, and be able to create family wealth where your spouse can still benefit because they'll ultimately be beneficiary of the trust at the top. And this is why a trust is also one of the most efficient investment vehicle, because someone doesn't have to own what is sitting in a trust, actually. So, but then they can still benefit. Can you see that there's a separation between ownership and actually an enjoyment? So that's one of the things how we actually were able to solve this. So I've seen this happening. People not investing in properties because they're married in community of property and their spouse's credit profile is not good. So think of things like this, or for that matter, they're exposed, they're being sued left and right, or you worked so hard, you've got 6 properties like other famous people, and then chiki someone pays lobola for 10,000, and next thing they are claiming your multi-million estate. It can happen just by a signature. That's why we always say, before you put a signature, pick up a call and call some of your power team members. Say, I'm about to put my signature down. Have you looked at my transaction? Are my tax side of things covered? Because Every signature can have a tax implication. And then, or am I getting into trouble from legal point of view? Or is there any form of financial product that I can consider to actually safeguard myself around such kind of a risk? So these are some of the content and some of the literacies that we want you, and we want to impact you on every 2 months to ensure that you equip yourself. And I'll encourage you, some of you guys who attended now, to say, reach out to me so that I can also give you this content. Start empowering those little ones within the family. You can share with them within your family alone, so that they are also actually being exposed to these type of literacies. I think from my side, I'll also, okay, one of the things that I want to teach you, if I'm not sure if the time will allow me, but this is what I call one of the benefits also that comes with the trust, called conduit pipe principle. Once you moved from having structured your affairs and separated Maria and Sipo, and then having everything within the investment structure, this is what will typically happen. Some people, what they do, the mistake they make is that they've got this wealth sitting in their personal names. You've got this couple of wealth, whether it's properties or other investment that you're having. Before you can give your children, you end up doing what? You end up having to pay SARS first, because the money has to come to you first, and then you need to share something with them. So how we can actually even end up solving that? Why not specifically create a trust or investment vehicle like a trust that can allow you to use certain principle like conduit pipe principle, where the little ones can be the one directly getting the money before even themselves pay SARS, because you may find that they are actually even getting what you call tax-free income, like 91,000, currently sitting at 91,000. So imagine if you've got about 3 properties, and then you just put them in a trust, and then you're able to take care of the well-being of the little ones. So these are some of basic literacies of just moving money. And I just felt that, you know what, in the interest of time, let me show you some of the things that you can actually just leverage off. So we'll be here, guys, for the next 10 minutes to take questions. And like I said, throw all these difficult questions to Mulalo. Mulalo, are you there? Can I ask Mulalo and Bruce to switch on their videos, please?